growing up without fathers in our homes? What's the cause, and how do we stop the cycle of fatherlessness?
I think that it's nearly impossible to love someone who comes from you if you don't first love yourself. I think too many of our men suffer from a lack of self-love. It's impossible to love those who are your offspring if you don't have a positive image of yourself. I love to drink the sunny water because of the crisp taste and because of how well it's been filtered. But if you pour it into a basin that's been contaminated, or a basin that I don't have proper respect for, then it doesn't matter what kind of water you put in it, no matter how much I've appreciated it in the past. Because of where it came from, I can't appreciate it. And I think a lot of us are having difficulty, and it's time to stop having this watered down conversation. A lot of us as men are unhappy with ourselves, and we don't have a positive image of ourselves. And positive images of ourselves are not reinforced in music and in culture and in television. And so as a result, we have a negative image of ourselves, and then we're asked to love the people who come from us, and it's nearly impossible. And we're struggling. It's struggling, and it's tough, because it's tough enough being a man. It's even tougher being a man who doesn't love himself and being told by society, you need to love your children.
He's about to start preaching up in here. Yes. Anybody else?
Well, I think earlier on we heard a very, very strong testimony from the young man there. I forget his name. He's only 18 years old. But I think he really clinched it when he said that a lot of the fathers are absent because they fear responsibility. And this is what we are finding out. I have a foundation in Kenya, and we are supporting kids who are from poor families. But we find that a lot of the kids that we're supporting are from families that are led by single mothers. Not because the fathers are dead, because we always have to investigate before we write the checks to these kids to pay for their education. Why it is that they cannot afford to go to school, and why it is that their families, some of them we hear they have fathers, why is it that they cannot afford? And it is because the fathers fear responsibility. They do not want to take up responsibility. When they get more kids, they decrease their responsibility. Sometimes we have seen very, very heartbreaking situations where a woman gives birth to a child with birth defects, and the father disappears. And this is very, very worrisome, because it shows that men are not ready to take responsibility. And what that means is that that is transferred to their kids. Because even when they have deadbeat dads, these kids still want a male figure to adore. And you find them looking for their dads in the ghettos, in the drinking dens, in the gangs to worship.
Do you think that, you talk a lot about responsibility. What would make a man not be responsible for his child? What would scare a man away? Why can't a man take that responsibility?
Yes. Good evening, everybody. If I can interject, I think I will come from a macro level, if you will, and I'll look at a couple of things from this perspective. First and foremost, I think society is training men to only be seen as livelihood providers. But in essence, providing monetarily and financially is only one part of the puzzle. And so many times, fatherhood and manhood is reduced to just a paycheck. So as a result, we see many times our men are running from responsibility because they think, if I don't have enough financial wherewithal to afford to take care of my children, I have no use at all. I give a shout out to the Aeneas earlier for speaking again on behalf of this thing called balance. There is really, parents have two main jobs. It's to first nurture, which usually we look to our women to provide. And then the other piece of that is structure, which normally we look to men to provide. But we need to get away from these labels that, again, society has told us Men, all your responsibility is to provide structure and financial support. So again, when a man is not able to provide those things, then boom, you have this fear, you have this pressure, and now if I'm not able to do those things, then poof, I'm gone. We need to begin looking at men and families holistically and not just reducing things to this base thing called financial support, which one more point is around why so many, again, single mothers end up running away, unwittingly running away those men who would participate in their children's lives. And not at all am I saying all the blame, I'm just giving us a point to think about, so please don't misconstrue me. But again, a lot of times I've seen it from personal experience where women will say, hey, if you don't have anything to contribute financially, don't come around and see your son or your daughter. When again, in actuality, love is not just a noun, love is an action word. And a lot of our kids, they don't spell love L-O-V-E, they spell love T-I-M-E. And they don't care how much money you have.
I'm going to piggyback off of what you were saying, because that's going to bring, go ahead.
And I'm anxious to hear get Brother Borelli in here. But here's what happens too often, is that boys are showing up at the doorstep of manhood, and they're showing up unprepared. And when manhood comes calling, nobody is willing to wait on you to grow up and to get up to speed. And so you have to become a man under the watchful eye of everybody around you. And nobody's prepared to tell you, we'll give you time to wait. The wife you just married did not intend to have to wait on you. And manhood is calling, but you're unprepared. The job you just got, they were trying to hire a man. They didn't know that you had the age, you met the age requirements, but you lacked the maturity. And so when you show up at manhood's doorstep and you're still a boy, it can be bewildering, it can be confusing, it can be perplexing, it can be disorienting, and the end result is that we strike out against the very people that we should be loving. We should be loving our kids, but because we don't feel that we're equipped for the job that we feel sometimes that they placed upon us, because before we had a family and before we had kids, it was okay. It was okay to fall short of the mark. But now you have people holding us accountable, and it can be frustrating. It can be frustrating, and that's why I appreciate programs like Men Impact Change, because it's time out for boys showing up at the doorstep of manhood unprepared.
The voice of wisdom. Yes, I want to piggyback off of what you were saying about responsibility and manhood. This brings me to, it's perfect because it brings me to my next question. Many boys are growing up with a distorted view of masculinity. What is positive masculinity, and how do we train our boys to embrace that?
Let me just go back to the first question.
Absolutely.
Just three things. First is, as a man, your identity is found in your revelation of Christ. Until you get the revelation, you don't know who you are.
Say it louder for the folks in the back.
Can I get an amen? Amen! As a man, your identity is in the revelation of Christ. That's right, amen. Secondly, too many young boys don't have zip control. Having too much sex, don't have the maturity to handle what comes after that. I also blame the church. Too much praise the Lord, but not dealing with the right issues.
Preach, brother.
It's easy to say praise the Lord, but these young people are struggling with feelings. And there comes a time we have to stop thinking about offerings only and start dealing with the real issue.
That's why you're wearing the velvet jacket. That's why you're wearing the velvet jacket.
So I do hope that we can deal with the elephant in the room, because let me tell you, the young people are having sex in the church more than married couples out there. Wow. And until the church deals with the issue, the society is a reflection of the church. So we've got to deal with the elephant in the room. Let's not behave like the deputy Holy Spirit. Deal with the issue.
Yes, that's correct.
I don't even remember what the question was. Did y'all receive that?
Okay, well, you know what? I'm just gonna let them have it.
All righty.
Professor Sadiq, you have written a book called Millionaire Manners. How do we get our boys and men, and women too, hell, to possess a millionaire mindset?
So I'll introduce a concept while answering that question, if I may. The concept that I want to introduce to everyone, again, it serves as a purpose to answer that question. the concept that I want to introduce to everyone, and it's also an answer to the first question that you asked as well, because we talked about some of the potential causes for fatherlessness, but again, this is only a short panel, so let's also talk about some of the potential solutions. Is that all right? So the concept that I'd like to introduce to everyone is this concept of community parenting. The concept of community parenting. What I've seen in my estimation, I work with thousands of young men here in Baltimore City, in DC. I travel the country speaking and working to youth in all sorts of settings, juvenile justice, nonprofits, etc. And one of the things that I found is that not only do we suffer from a very, very acute case of relationship poverty in many of our communities, we also suffer from folks in the community turning their back on young people, our young men included. So my solution, one of the things I talk about extensively is community parenting. Community parenting, right, is the concept of if little Johnny got in trouble at school, before he got home, the entire neighborhood knew that Johnny was in trouble.
That's right.
And before he got home, little Johnny already had about 4 or 5 butt whoopings. And then he had to get in the house and face mommy and daddy. We've lost our way in terms of community parenting. Too many of us say, that's not my kid, Johnny don't got nothing to do with me. And we turn our back on Johnny, and then Johnny, we don't pay attention again until he's wreaking havoc in our neighborhoods. When in actuality, we could have staved off Johnny's ruin by saying, hey Johnny, I heard you're having some problems, Johnny. Can I help you, Johnny? What do you need, Johnny? Well, we've lost that, and I'm begging everyone in this room to not just worry about your own kids, but you gotta love the kids, even if you don't have kids. You gotta love the kids in your neighborhood, in your school, in your community, as if they were your own. Then we'll start to see some of these issues with our young men decrease a little bit. But until we address that, again, from a community perspective, I agree again with several of the thoughts that parenting absolutely starts at home. But again, what if there are no parents? What if they die? What if they're orphans? Brother Kavuma just said he's an orphan. Whose responsibility is that? I submit to you that it's all our responsibility.
The millionaire mindset, though.
Community parenting.
There we go. That's what I'm talking about. All right. Our generation is being decimated by alcohol and drug addiction. How can we change the cycle?
Identity. Because when somebody falls into an addiction, is a way of saying there's something empty within.
Absolutely.
It is a cover. It is you got to hear what they're not saying and see the tears on the inside.
Right.
That is what addicted. I was addicted to sex for 15 years.
Right.
Until one time I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, you know what, I'm better than this. You understand? So we need to make these young men, young women understand that it doesn't matter where they were born, whether it's in poverty or in the projects, is that you call them here projects? But as long as there's blood running through their veins, they have it in them to succeed. And they only have 2 choices. You got to look at the future eyeball to eyeball and tell the future I'm coming after you. And there are only 2 end results. Number 1 is to succeed, and number 2 is to succeed the more. So you have, there's a very thin line between arrogance and confidence. You got to step on it.
Absolutely.
And face the future and tell them, you know what? I am not empty. The world wants me to believe I'm empty. My enemies want me to believe I'm empty. Haters want me to believe I'm empty. But I know he that is in me is greater than the one that is in the world.
Yeah, I'm glad you say that. I have a personal question myself, because you brought up a great point, and the point for me is accountability. A lot of men have trouble taking accountability for their actions. What does it take for a man, and how does he get to a point where he is taking accountability, self-accountability for his actions, the things he's done, the impact that he has had?
Well, let me just say, while answering on this question of accountability, also about how society creates an identity for these kids, so that men, while at their very infancy, when they're boys, begin to feel that they have a certain superiority over the girls, the way in which society brings them up, looks up at the boy. I work for the United Nations, and we are having huge problems in places like India, where if a woman is conceiving and getting a boy, everybody, the whole village celebrates. But if it's a girl, everybody says, don't worry, my sister, a child is a child.
Oh my
It already creates an imbalance there. And what you get out of this creature that is called the boy is a brute right from the beginning. They think they're superior. When I was growing up, I was the last one in a big family. And my elder sister did not let me go into the kitchen. She kicked me out of the kitchen. She said, you have no role here, you're a boy. And when I grew up and I was an adult, it was very hard for me to make my own meals. And so the traditional and natural thing for me to do in a traditional setting would be to get a girl into my life and tell her, cook for me. And so you start creating those imbalances right at the societal level. And that is what brings the issue of accountability and responsibility in the end. Because then this boy is accustomed to being the leader. Is accustomed to being the head. In every arrangement, the parents say, you are the boy, you are the head of the family, when we are not, the parents are not there. And then the tables turn. When he gets, he graduates, or he's an adult, he realizes that the roles have changed. His wife has a degree and has to go out and work for 12 hours. And if she comes back home, she's not going to cook. She's going to expect that both of them are going to take turns in cooking. And this boy is going to say, well, but you know I cannot cook. And there begins the imbalances, the lack of accountability, and all the violence that we have seen.
Oh, yeah, and I something else I've noticed. If I were to take, because too often we just leave off of our responsibility. It is my responsibility to be the first person to put my son's hands to something. Now, he may decide later on that he wants to do something else, but I have to introduce him to something. In football, they tell you, keep your feet moving all the time. Well, I don't know which way to go. Keep your feet moving so once you know which way the runner is going, you're already in motion, and it's a lot easier to get it. Too often, we neglect to be the first ones to give our sons an assignment, and someone else comes along and gives him an assignment, and we're wondering, how did he get to be that? Well, you forfeited your first priority. You had first priority and first rights and first influence over your son. If I took my Bible and I put it on the floor and used it as a doorstop, it would work for a doorstop, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it keep the door open? Yes. But is that what it was created for? Until somebody comes along and say, hey, you're a Bible, you're not a doorstop. Let me take you. Let me put your hands to something else. There is greatness inside of you. There's a word of God from inside of you. There's a revelation of God inside of you. For the first time, the Bible has a realization of its purpose. And the first person who comes along and finds your son or your daughter is going to give them an assignment. There's a drug dealer waiting to give them an assignment. There's a human trafficker waiting to give her an assignment. There's a pimp somewhere waiting to give her an assignment. There's a gang leader somewhere ready to give him an assignment. How did he get that kind of influence over your son? Because you left a void that was there for somebody to fill. And you wonder how they got there. Nobody pushed you out of the way. You left the void, and it's inevitable that somebody's going to fill it.
That's good.
I want to add just a slightly different perspective to the question around accountability, if I may. And I'd like to just have a word with the men in the room, because again, this is Men Impact Change, and we've been having some pretty good conversations here. I would submit to all the men that it's our job to hold other men accountable for their actions.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Let me offer this example. So, again, our sister shared with us an unfortunate incident from her personal life. I submit to you that someone knew that man was putting his hands on this woman. And somebody, some man, somewhere chose to look the other way and say, that's not my relationship. That's a domestic issue. That's a personal issue. I don't want to get in between that man and that woman. And meanwhile, that leads to a broken home. Because we always talk about steel sharpening steel, men. But when we see men getting out of line or stepping out of place, we gotta not only yell at each other, but we gotta lift each other up. I got your back, brother. I see that you're going through something, brother. But too many times, again, for all of the reasons that have already been discussed tonight, from a societal issue, we feel shame, we feel rejection, we don't have that camaraderie built with one another to say, pick up the phone and just say, hey, Brother Rob, I'm hurting. Give me a positive word, because so many times, again, as my brother just pointed out, men are used to being the pitcher, and we fill all the other cups, but we forget to refill our own. And then as a result, we have nothing left to give those around us. That is not a sustainable cycle. So in my book, again, men, to the men in this room, if you see a brother that needs to be, again, challenged, then challenge him with love. If you see a brother that needs to be picked up, pick him up with love, be his strength. If you see a brother that needs to be congratulated and say, good job, brother, make sure that we do that as well. That's how we keep a positive cycle going. Because again, it all comes back to community. We're not gonna fix our relationships one-on-one. It's gonna take a village. We've heard that time and time again. It's gonna take a village, and until we each individually take responsibility for all of us, we're never going to improve things.
Wow. Are you guys receiving this? This is amazing, right? I wish we could do this all night long, but we can't. So right now, I want to go ahead and open the floor up to any audience members that have any questions for the gentleman up here on stage. Any boys, any young men, do you have any questions? Yes. If you want to come up here and grab this mic.
I just wanted to ask Professor Sadiq, because you said about community parenting, and one of the problems that we have is parents themselves pointing to another parent and saying that that's my child, that none of the business. So leave that child alone. To me, how do you go around that?
Great question. I believe also in baby steps. I think that was an excellent analogy. Just keep your foot moving, and then, not only will the spirit continue to hit you, right, you'll eventually know the direction to go. Because somebody might just push you in that direction, so you got to go to it. So in my opinion, first we got to start with baby steps. A wise man once said that rules without relationships breeds rebellion. So in my opinion, we have to start with relationships first before I come to somebody else's kid and say, hey, don't do that. Again, Johnny, we'll keep it Johnny, right? Don't do that, Johnny. But if I've never spoken to Johnny before, Johnny's like, who are you? And then the mama gonna be like, yeah, you're right, who are you? So first thing we gotta start is when we see Johnny walking to the bus stop, hey, good morning, Johnny. And guess what? He might ignore you the first time. But if you see him the second time, you say, hey, good morning, Johnny. He might give you one of these. He might give you a grunt. But the third time you say, hey, good morning, Johnny, what's Johnny gonna say? Good morning. And then the next time you see Johnny, hey, Johnny, man, your pants hanging kind of low. Pull your pants up, Johnny. Johnny could be like, all right, yeah, you're right. Then the next time you see Johnny about to get into a fight, you say, hey, Johnny, get your tail up the street. What does Johnny do? He gets his tail up the street, disaster averted. So, my opinion, my brother, we take baby steps. Let's build some relationships first, then we institute rules.
Okay, we have.
Hi, my name is Gadoni, and I really have a very burning question, and it's based on every aspect of what I've learned today. So there's lots of lost identity, especially for men who don't love themselves, men who are lost. And women, we get lots of reactions from this. We can feel, especially one of the guest speakers said, there is a cycle of rejection. And as a woman, you can be rejected, but you don't know. It's not because it's you being rejected, but it's because of the man going through whatever he's going through. So, as coming from a woman, we get all these reactions. We get men who beat us, men who are violent, men who are this and that, right? But we don't want to come out as a way to be victims. We want to be victors. We want to be encouragers for these situations. We want to encourage these men. But what my dilemma is, how do you encourage a man who has lost identity? How do you encourage a man who does not know how to love himself? And men are full of ego. They're full of ego. If you instruct a man, they feel like you are trying to pull down their ego. So how do you encourage such a man? How do you encourage such men without coming from a bad perspective? Thank you.
All right. Wow.
That is an excellent question.
I think it's true. All men, we have one thing in common. All of us here, ego. The ego of a man is the size of an elephant, as fragile as an egg. But how do you encourage a man? It's always in the tone. Never make a man feel small. All we have is our ego. Secondly, another issue that makes men violent, by the way, is when we applaud average success. What am I saying? You can't praise a man, oh, he pays the daughter's school fees. He's supposed to do that. There's nothing to praise him about. The problem is we overpraise them for doing their responsibility. Just appreciate it. But when you praise them, you want to go on Facebook, you want to go on Twitter, guess what? He paid school fees. Like I hear people here say, I've never been to jail. You're never supposed to be in jail. You understand what I'm saying? So what happens is, the moment we boost the man's ego with things that are not right, in as far as praising is concerned, when you starve them, they will beat it out of you. And then one thing is, don't be a public success and a private failure. If a man is beating you, speak. If it makes him look like a small boy, it is fine, because he is a small boy. You understand what I'm saying? So what you got to do, if you want to help your man, number one, is the tone. You can really say something in a very good way, but you're really telling him off. But because you say it in a nice way, he'll be nodding his head. And before you realize it, he is that who you want him to be.
And quickly, last night I told a lady in the interview, speak to a man's practical side. He's less emotional, and so sometimes he's become accustomed to your being over emotional, and he's just used to that. And he just compartmentalizes that. Appeal to his practical side. When you start talking to a guy about how to build something, how to make it work, and you go through the steps, he's a lot more receptive. If my wife decided she needs to come home and raise the children, instead of coming home slamming the bread on the counter and says, I'm sick of coming home every day, cooking for you and all this, and I gotta work every day, and my boss is giving me the blues, and then you got these kids, and you're not helping do anything, if she'll come in and say, sweetheart, I appreciate what you do for us. It's getting tough for us to try to both work at the same time. It's costing me $80 a week to drive to work. It's costing us $200 a week for school care. I have to buy clothes for work. I have to eat while I'm at work. I think it may be more practical that I could stay at home with the children, and that would be a help. And we'll cut back on the bills, and we'll cut back on our budget, and we'll make it work somehow. You'll get his head nodding. It may take a couple days, but he'll come back in a couple days and say, so when are you ready to quit?
It don't go like that, though.
But you can't. But if you're going to have any success, you're going to have to appeal to the practical side of him. Because for women can discuss stuff all day without a resolution. I can hear my wife and her sisters talking all day about how he's not doing right, and he's not doing right, and he's not doing right, he's not doing right. I walk in the room, they say, brother-in-law, what do you think? I say, well, you should just get rid of him because he hadn't had a job in 2 years. Everybody around the table gets quiet and looked at me like I just said something crazy, because women don't necessarily want an answer. They don't necessarily want an answer. They want to talk about it. Men don't talk about it over and over. We're going to drop it on the table, and that's what it is. And when you appeal to that part of a man, you can get him. If I'm having trouble out of my truck, and he knows about trucks, and we're at a party, and I say, man, my carburetor's not acting right, and he says, I know about carburetors. What kind of car you got? And I say, well, I got a Chevrolet. A Chevrolet what? Chevrolet Tahoe. He says, oh, I know. I've worked with those before. All you do is you do this, and you do that, and you do this, and you do that. Guess what? I'm at the party trying to enjoy the party, but my mind is waiting on AutoZone to open up in the morning so that I can go apply what he told me. You can't fix a woman's problem that quickly. If I tell my wife a 20-step plan to do something, she's cool with it. If I tell her just do this and walk out of the room, 5 minutes later she'll be back, I don't think you heard me. because we're practical and we get to the point. And learn to deal with that side of him, the practical side of him that thinks things through, and walk him through it step by step. And then at the end, with no disrespect, just said, I appreciate what you do for us, but I think it's about time that you need to consider me staying home with the kids. And if you're going to get better results, and the problem is not something deeper, that's going to be the way to do it. I would suggest.
Thank you so much. Okay, yes. Okay, so before we close out, I want to kind of redirect the conversation back to positive masculinity. And what that is, because we do have some young males in the audience right now, so we want to make sure that they understand what positive masculinity is and how we get them to embrace it.
Well, for me, just one word. You have to know how to give bride to Christ as a man.
Again, I think I go back to challenging men on this one. And I think it starts with how we role model. The old saying isn't monkey talk, monkey listen. What's the old saying? Monkey see? Monkey do. Absolutely. Our children are seeing every single thing that we're doing. They don't care about words, right? The old saying goes, right? No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So for me, that simply means that we have to model every single thing that we want our children to become. I literally just had a conversation with my wife the other day, and it just dawned on me. I was driving somewhere. One of my sons was in the back seat. We have 4 boys all together, okay? We have 1 daughter. But I was with one of my sons in the back, and it just hit me like a bolt of lightning as I was riding. We were riding to the store or something. My 3-year-old, that's like my road dog, my 3-year-old boy, okay? So we were riding, and it just hit me. Anytime, for me, I can't speak for any other parent in the room, but I think there's some truth to this, to my parents in the room. It hit me that, especially when you have multiple children, your best and your worst qualities are present in your different children. And if you're not careful, the best can come out, and sometimes the worst can come out if we're not careful. So for me, that was just a lesson in that moment that I have to be careful of every single thing that I say and do around my sons because they are walking in my footsteps. Knowingly or unknowingly, I tell folks all the time, it's not just about the conversations you had with your children, it's also about the conversations you have around your children. So again, for me, it comes back to men modeling, right? If you don't want your sons to be hitting on women, make sure you never even raise your voice at your wife. If you don't want your sons, right, sleeping around and having multiple girlfriends and getting women pregnant while they're underage, make sure you're not bringing around multiple women around your children if you're not married, men. These are simple things that we can institute right now. And again, we've alluded to it all throughout the evening. Again, around sowing seeds, you guys dropped so many jewels earlier in the evening, but that piece around sowing seeds, I think, is absolutely appropriate for us. And again, it ain't monkey talk, monkey listen. It's monkey see, monkey do.
Monkey do.
You guys give it up for these gentlemen right here. Give it up for them. Yes, just real quick, really fast. I don't know if they got your backstory, your names, and how to contact you. So just really quick, let the audience know who you are and how they can follow you on social media if you are on social media and what it is that you do.
We are on social media.
Yes.
Israel Robert Burale on Facebook. Of course, I'm from Kenya. We're going back next week. I am the founder of the Naked Truth and Father's Hand. I'm also a minister of the gospel. I serve as pastor at House of Grace Church in Nairobi, Kenya. You can get us on www.robertburale.com or Facebook, Israel Robert Burale, and be able to get in touch with you as soon as you leave the
Thank
show.
you.
Good evening once again. I hope everybody, yes, give my hand, give my hand, give my hand, give my hand, give my hand. Good evening once again. Super excited and honored to be with you all this evening. I just want to shout out Men Impact Change one more time for bringing together all of these various elements of the diaspora, because so many times Kenyans, they don't talk to Ghanaians. Ghanaians don't talk to Bahamians. Bahamians don't talk to Jamaicans. Jamaicans don't talk to Ugandans. this organization represents our ability to come together, right? Because there's no community without unity first. So once again, guys, my name is Sadiq Ali. My table is over here. My organization is Millionaire Manners Academy. We work with young people, parents, and professional development for educators and youth workers all across the country. On all social media platforms, at Millionaire Manners or at the Sadiq Ali Show. Come see me at my table. I'll hang out for a little bit. Got a couple of my books over there as well. Great to see you guys.
My name is Chris Mburu, and I am a Kenyan lawyer, and I'm the founder of the Heal the Back Education Fund. And the Heal the Back Education Fund is an organization that I started to honor a Swedish woman who paid for all my education and who made me who I am today. When I'm not running the Heal the Back Education Fund, I also work as a senior human rights advisor for the United Nations. You can follow me on Facebook, and one of the reasons you should follow me is because we have a big campaign at my foundation where we are calling it Education is a Human Right. We've been paying a lot of money to educate children in Kenya, and we have partnered with many organizations around the world who are doing this job. But we feel, and because I work for the United Nations, I know that this responsibility rests with governments. Governments should be pushed to ensure that education for young people is free. And we also talk about gender equality. And when we don't educate our kids, and when we don't teach them gender equality, that is when we have the kind of challenges we are discussing tonight. So I would like you all to follow Chris Mburu on Facebook or the Heal the Back Education Fund. And we try to push on governments to ensure that education is made free for all, because it is their fundamental human right.
Again, I'm Christopher Preston. I'm glad to be here. You can follow me on Facebook just at Christopher Preston, or you can like and follow my Facebook page, Preston's Practical Perspectives. Moving forward, we're going to be doing having a lot of conversations about what men need to be doing. And if I had one thing to leave with you men, with all of us men tonight, even if you're in home with your children, don't confuse accessibility with availability. Accessible means I know dad is in the next room, but that's not the same as available. Be available to your children. They know how hard you can work. They know how hard you can pay the bills. They know you can take the trash out. They need to know how much you can love them. They need to know how much you can love them. And so follow me on Facebook. I'll be hanging around to share with everybody tonight. I'm so glad to be here. Thank Sonny, thank Michael for having me. Thank our host for the night. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you guys so very much. You guys give it up one more time for the gentleman on the stage. Thank you so very much. We received all that. I hope you guys all enjoyed. Yes, stand up for him.